Johnny Depp, the world's craziest pirate, the man behind some of the most unforgettable characters. But have you ever wondered, how did this man go from being one of Hollywood's most beloved faces to suddenly finding himself at the center of scandals, lawsuits, and endless controversies? Did he really rise to the top only because of his talent? Or is there a completely different story hiding behind the curtain? In this video, you're going to hear the hidden sides of Johnny Depp's life. And believe me, you haven't heard this story anywhere else before. Johnny Depp's journey is not just the story of an actor. It's the story of a man who, behind Hollywood's dazzling lights, has always been fragile and full of contradictions. On screen, audiences saw him as wild, funny, or deeply dramatic characters. But when the cameras stopped rolling, what remained was a man battling his own chaos. People often ask, what went wrong in his story? How could someone who reached such incredible success suddenly become the focus of constant debate? That's exactly the question we're chasing here. From a very young age, Johnny's life was filled with storms. Growing up in Florida, his childhood was marked by a restless family environment, constant moving, and fragile relationships. Even as a boy, he lost his trust in the world and began searching for something to fill the emptiness inside. Maybe that's why art and acting weren't just careers for him. They were an escape. When Johnny stepped onto a stage or stood in front of a camera, he forgot his own struggles and transformed into someone else. And that made him both powerful and incredibly vulnerable. But let's pause for a moment. Does success really make a person happy? Why would someone like Johnny Depp, who earned millions of dollars, had fans all over the world, and reached the kind of fame most people only dream of, still feel an emptiness deep inside? This is where we touch the darker side of Hollywood, because the brighter the lights, the deeper the shadows. Depp's rise to fame, as we all know, began with Edward Scissorhands. In Tim Burton's unique world, he portrayed a quiet but innocent soul with scissors for hands, while secretly channeling pieces of his own life into the character. That film proved to the world that Johnny was not just a star, but a true artist. Then came Donnie Brasco, Sleepy Hollow, and of course the legendary Pirates of the Caribbean series, which turned him into one of the most recognized actors in the world. But we're not here just to list his films. What really matters is this. In every role, Johnny Depp carried fragments of his own life to the screen. If you look closely, you can see it. Jack Sparrow's madness, Edward's loneliness, Willy Wonka's oddity, those were reflections of Johnny's inner world. And that raises a big question. How did such a talented man get pulled into one of the darkest chapters of his career? Sometimes we need to ask, does fame set you free, or does it trap you even more? Johnny Depp's life became a living example of that question. He was the man who could make millions laugh on screen but then sit alone in the shadows once the spotlight faded. That contradiction is the key to truly understanding him. As we explore Johnny Depp's story, we won't just highlight his achievements. We'll also dive into the parts hidden in the shadows, the sides people don't usually talk about. Because to really know someone, you can't just look at their light. You have to see their darkness too. And on this journey, you'll witness not only the career of a Hollywood legend, but also the raw human struggles of a man filled with highs and lows. And remember, this is a story you haven't heard anywhere else. Get ready to uncover the truth behind Johnny Depp's life. As Johnny Depp's fame skyrocketed, something very interesting started happening. The world saw him as a chameleon, an actor who could disappear into any role, whether it was the oddball Edward Scissorhands, the dangerous Donnie Brasco, or the eccentric Jack Sparrow. But behind that magical ability to transform There was a man who often admitted he didn't even know who he really was. Isn't that a strange thought? To be loved by millions for playing characters, but to feel unsure of your own identity? Let's take Pirates of the Caribbean as an example. Jack Sparrow was not written the way we know him today. The studio imagined a classic pirate, tough, commanding, predictable. But Depp? He shocked everyone. He played Jack as half-drunken, witty, unpredictable, almost like a rock star lost at sea. Disney executives panicked. They thought audiences would hate it. But what happened? The world fell in love. Kids dressed as Jack Sparrow, fans quoted his lines, and suddenly Johnny Depp became the face of a billion-dollar franchise. But here's the real question. Did Jack Sparrow make Johnny Depp? Or did Johnny Depp make Jack Sparrow? Success like this comes with a price. Fame is not just about applause. Fame is a mirror. It reflects both love and hate. And Johnny, who always felt like an outsider, suddenly found himself living in a golden cage. Everywhere he went, cameras followed. Every mistake, every weakness, every personal struggle, it all became public. Can you imagine what it's like to never have a private moment? To live your life knowing that millions are waiting to judge your next move? And then came the darker chapters. The world doesn't only remember Johnny for his characters, it also remembers the trials, the lawsuits, the scandals splashed across headlines. Suddenly, people weren't talking about his movies anymore. They were talking about his personal battles. But here's a question worth asking. When an artist's personal life becomes entertainment, do we lose sight of their art? Or is this just the price of living in the spotlight? Johnny Depp's relationships played a big role in how the public saw him. From Winona Ryder to Vanessa Paradis. And of course, the highly publicized marriage with Amber Heard. Each story became more than personal. It became global news. And as accusations and counter-accusations flew, fans were left confused. Who was telling the truth? Who was the real Johnny Depp? Was he the troubled star? Or the victim of a system that feeds on controversy? But let's not forget, Johnny Depp is not only an actor, he is also a musician at heart. Before Hollywood, he dreamed of being a rock star. Even in the middle of his acting career, he toured with bands, performed live, and sought refuge in music. Maybe that was his way of reminding himself who he truly was. Think about it. How many of us chase one dream, only to be pushed into another path by fate, and then spend our lives wondering, what if? When you look closely, Johnny's life almost feels like one of his films. There are moments of brilliance, unexpected twists, heartbreaking lows, and triumphant comebacks. He wins awards, then he loses credibility. He is celebrated as a genius, then criticized as a fallen star. And yet, through it all, people keep watching. Why? Because deep down, we all relate to that duality. The light and the dark, the hero and the broken man. It makes you wonder, do we admire Johnny Depp because he is perfect? Or do we admire him because he is imperfect? Because he reflects the chaos and contradictions we all feel inside. Maybe that's his greatest gift as an artist. He doesn't just entertain. He reminds us of our own humanity. But the question remains, after all the fame, the roles, the controversies, and the endless headlines, who is Johnny Depp really? Is he Jack Sparrow, the trickster who outsmarts everyone? Or is he Edward Scissorhands, the lonely soul misunderstood by the world? Or maybe he is simply Johnny, a man still searching for peace in the middle of chaos. When we look at Johnny Depp's life story, we don't just see the tale of an actor. What we truly see is how a person can stand tall with both light and shadow, how they can fall, break, and yet still find the strength to rise again. Because Johnny's story was never written only with the bright lights of Hollywood. It was also carved out in the darkness, hiding behind those lights. When we first saw him on the big screen, he seemed like a dream come true, Edward Scissorhands, Jack Sparrow, Donnie Brasco, every character was unforgettable. But over time, we realized that each of those roles carried pieces of Johnny himself. It was as if these characters were fragments of his own broken soul projected onto the screen. Maybe that's why millions connected so deeply with them. Because they weren't just fiction, they were reflections of a real person's spirit. But such strong connections don't always come without consequences. As Johnny climbed the ladder of success, he also carried the heavy burden of having his private life exposed to the entire world. And the world didn't just watch his victories, it also watched his struggles, his pain, and his downfall. We, the audience, sometimes applauded, sometimes judged, and sometimes criticized. But did we ever stop to think? Was it perhaps the weight of our applause that made him so fragile? In recent years, the lawsuits, the scandals, the endless headlines, these things turned him from simply being an actor into a public spectacle. And the real question is this: do we admire Johnny Depp because he's an untouchable icon? Or do we admire him because we see that he is flawed, vulnerable, and human, just like us? Maybe it's both. When we think about his journey, one truth becomes clear. No matter how many times life knocks you down, you can rise again. Yes, sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it happens under the eyes of the world, and sometimes it's fought silently within. But through all of these storms, Johnny is still standing. And maybe that is his greatest victory, because fame, wealth, and career come and go. But the will to rise again, that's eternal. Perhaps Johnny Depp's story reminds us of something powerful. Life is like a film. There is a beginning, a middle, and an end. But what truly moves us is not the hero's perfection. It's the hero's struggle despite their imperfections. And Johnny has shown us that real heroes are not flawless. They are human. Now, I want to turn to you. After hearing this story, what does Johnny Depp mean to you? Which part of his journey touched you the most? Was it the iconic characters he created? Or was it the battles he faced in real life? These are the questions only you can answer. And of course, if this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next stories we share. And most importantly, leave a comment. Whose life story do you want us to explore next? Which legendary name, which unforgettable artist should we uncover together? Your support and your comments are what shape this channel. Just like Johnny Depp's journey, we will tell many more stories together with you. Because with your help, this journey will always be stronger, more meaningful, and worth every step.